Parents abandoned me, and now demand I support my divorced sister, as it's a duty of her rich big brother. So, I'm the middle child, between an older brother, who was 6 years my senior, and a younger sister who's 10 years my junior. My parents are now in their late 60s and early 70s, and looking back, my position in the family has always been a bit shaky. From a young age, I got the vibe from my mom that my arrival was somewhat of a surprise. No, not the good kind of surprise. More like the oops kind. She never outright said she regretted having me, but her hints weren't exactly subtle. She'd drop comments here and there about how I was unplanned and how my coming into the world made things a bit tougher for them. Imagine hearing that as a kid. It's not exactly a self-esteem booster, right? You start to wonder if maybe life would be easier for everyone if you weren't around. Then there was my older brother. This guy was my hero. He was big, strong, and just radiated confidence. He stood up for me against bullies, and sometimes those bullies were even our own parents, which is as messed up as it sounds. He knew how to handle them and shield me from their often harsh criticism. He was also incredibly handsome and popular, excelling in sports throughout high school and college. He had this charm about him that drew people in, and some even said he looked like a very young Marlon Brando. To me, he was the definition of what a man should be, everything that our dad, unfortunately, was not. Our dad could be pretty tough, petty and manipulative at times, which really distorted my view of what fatherhood was supposed to be like. My brother, though, he showed me kindness and taught me how to stand up for myself. He was protective, but also made sure I knew how to protect myself, which was invaluable growing up the way we did. As an adult looking back, I can see that my parents were pretty flawed. As a kid, though, you just feel like you're the problem. My brother wasn't perfect. Academically, he was a straight C student, and musically, let's just say he wasn't going to be the next Mozart. Despite this, my parents threw resources at him, hoping he'd somehow turn into a scholar-athlete-musician super combo. They enrolled him in piano and violin classes, which he hated, but they were determined. When I showed a genuine interest and aptitude for the piano, my brother was the first to suggest that maybe they should let me take the lessons instead. But of course, that suggestion fell on deaf ears. My musical education had to be self-funded when I became an adult, and now I play part-time at a local bar. It's a passion that I've carved out for myself, despite my rocky start. And birthdays? Oh boy, my birthdays were always an afterthought compared to how they celebrated his. My brother noticed this disparity and would actually use his own money to treat me on my birthdays, making sure I felt special, at least for a day. That meant the world to me. When my little sister was born, I was about in the 5th grade, and it was clear that I was more of an inconvenience than ever. I was often roped into babysitting duties, which further sidelined me in the family dynamics. They babied her and continued to put my brother on a pedestal, while I struggled to find my place. It felt like I was living the Jan Brady middle child stereotype, constantly trying to get noticed and validated. My parents didn't hesitate to pull out all the stops for my brother's college education, covering whatever his athletic scholarship didn't. Meanwhile, I felt like I had to excel in everything just to earn a fraction of that attention and support. I became an overachiever, always striving for the best grades and accolades, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'd see me the way they saw him. Long story short, my brother was jogging for exercise one night, and a drunk driver hit and killed him at a crosswalk. I was devastated, of course, as were my parents. My parents took out a lot of their frustration and grief on me, never ceasing to insinuate and remind me that I could never replace my brother, that I was inferior to my brother. Why are they stuck with me? This isn't the adult bitter me recounting things in my favor. This is me, after years of therapy, looking back calmly and rationally. My parents instilled in me the idea that they wished that if it had to be one of us who died, that it could have been me and not my brother. I was also moderately overweight and short as a teen, and this made me feel even worse. It didn't help that my dad always compared me unfavorably to my brother in terms of height and athletic ability. Your brother was 6'3" when he was your age. Gee, thanks for this helpful advice, Dad. I'll have a word with my legs and tell them to stop being so short because, as you know, my genes are my fault, and not yours. When it came my time to go to college, nothing from my parents, no offer to pay, no offer to help, no praise for my perfect marks, no praise for the fact that I had gotten numerous awards in high school for science and engineering. They never attended any of my ceremonies and only attended my graduation. And even then, only begrudgingly, it seemed. Their only comment was the passive-aggressive observation that I was just a coach, salutatorian, and not the valedictorian. I had never, even once in my entire academic career, gotten less than an A outstanding exemplary for an academic or elective mark, from kindergarten to 12th grade. I got perfect marks in college, too, so I didn't need their help to pay my way through school. And by this time, I was fully aware that they didn't like having me around. I was offered several full-ride scholarships both in and out of state. When I said I wanted to take a scholarship across the country, my parents just shrugged. No comments like, "Oh, stay near us. We want you near home. We'll miss you." So I thought, effort and Bluetown. I worked at a Rite Aid drugstore to supplement my scholarships. I majored in aerospace and minored in physics. All through college, I made the effort to go through the motions of visiting my parents on holidays. But I could tell I was just as meaningless to them as I always was. By the time I started graduate school, also full-ride scholarship, I just said au revoir to all of them and stopped calling. I could see how much I mattered to them once again, because they never once tried to call me after that. Or at least until recently. I've been working in aerospace for 17 years now. I make well over $200,000 a year. I own my own house, 2 luxury vehicles, an RV, and a motorcycle. And I've been married for nearly 20 years to a beautiful woman, 40, who chose me before I was even close to having these things, and who has her own career in literature. We have a 5-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter from my own experience with my parents. I know exactly what not to do with my kids. My sister got married at 19 to a guy I privately thought looked like a loser and a user. My parents spared no expense for her lavish wedding. At the time, I wasn't yet in my current strong financial position, but I was still making a great salary. I attended the wedding, and everyone was just as cold to me as I remember them. No one congratulated me on the fact that I was now fully grown. I hit my growth spurt at 20 and over 6 feet tall and now very slender and fit. Oh well, I gave my sister $5,000 as a present. I also had a chance to play the piano at the wedding because my sister asked me to, after a family friend remarked that I had mentioned taking private lessons. Everyone was enthusiastic about my playing and backslapping me. Not a peep from my parents, of course. My sister has a 6-year-old daughter. Sister divorced her husband 2 years ago because, surprise, surprise, he was a loser and a user and completely useless. He won't give her child support because he has no money. So my sister moved back home with my parents. She wants to go back to school. She had gotten a degree in modern art that my dad paid for, but she never got any work with it. And now she doesn't think she can land a well-paying job with it unless she adds to it or gets a different degree. And now my parents suddenly remembered my phone number. They didn't say so, but from what I gather, they blew through all their money, indulging her in their own tastes. They regularly go on lavish vacations, so now they think it's my duty as her rich big brother to step in and pay. My mom says that it would be classy for me to offer to pay since my sister could really use the money and I didn't spend a lot of time with her when she was young because you moved out so early. Uh-huh. Okay, she also says that now that she and my dad are getting old, it's a shame that I hardly visit. And they're confused as to why I'm so arrogant and not seeing them more often. Total gaslighting. I notice my dad has nothing to say about all this because he knows what really happened to this day. I'd love to smash a fist like a freight train right into his face. He told me that my brother was always ashamed of me, soon after my brother died. And this was after my brother told me to my face a few weeks earlier that he would always be there for me, and that he loved me, and that no one is ever going to hurt you if I'm standing. And in a way, my brother's been with me my whole life. I am inspired by him when I want to succeed. My dad is a jerk. The thing is, I know my parents are full of crap, but I don't want my niece to suffer. She's the same age group as my own kids, and I hate the idea of her going without. I never had a bad relationship with my sister, but she takes after my parents and is something of a self-involved narcissist. I am financially in a position to help pay, but I dislike the way they've all treated me since I was a boy. And my own kids will be in college in a blink of an eye. Also, who knows? Maybe I could get fired tomorrow and this whole lifestyle will come crashing down. Under what terms should I offer money? Should I offer any at all? If not, how can I help in other ways? Now for the top comments before the update. It's a shame for your sister and her daughter, but their situation is a result of your sister's bad life choices. It's not your job to bail them out of these problems. You have to set up a boundary here because it won't stop with this money, I suspect. I imagine that it will be your sister's college. Then she needs money for her own home. Then your parents will start to suffer as they get older and they'll need something. And of course, you are a terrible son if you refuse to pay for it, and so on and so on. You have 2 children of your own to look after, and while you've built an enviable life for yourself, you are not exactly a millionaire. Take care of your own wife and children first. Update 1. It all started last Sunday. I was kicking back, planning to catch up on some Netflix, when my phone rang. Seeing it was my parents, I felt that familiar twist in my stomach. Our calls are usually loaded with more subtext than a mystery novel, and today was no exception. I answered, trying to keep my tone light. "Hey, what's up?" Right off the bat, My mom went into her usual guilt-tripping mode. It's been ages since you last visited. We're not getting any younger, she started off, laying the groundwork for whatever was coming next. I kept it cool. Yeah, work's been crazy busy. You know how it is. Without missing a beat, she dove right into the real reason for the call. So, we were thinking, it's about time you thought about helping your sister with some money for her school. I blinked, totally caught off guard. What money? I asked, trying to keep the surprise out of my voice. Well, she's looking to go back to school, and since you've done so well for yourself, it'd be really classy of you to offer, she explained, as if this was a totally normal request. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hold on. Why am I suddenly responsible for financing her education? Because you're her big brother, and you weren't around much when she was growing up. It's the least you could do, she continued, her voice taking on that familiar tone of expectation. My frustration started to boil over. Mom, let's get one thing straight. My being away was because I needed to make something of myself, on my own, because I sure as heck didn't get the help from you guys that she did. There was a pause, and then my dad's voice came on the line, heavy and annoyed. Look, we're not here to rehash the past. We're talking about your sister needing help. Needing help? Or you needing me to help because you've mismanaged your priorities and finances? I shot back, my patience wearing thin. The argument heated up from there. My mom threw in everything from how I was always too ambitious for my own good to how I abandoned the family by moving away. My dad wasn't much better, tossing in digs about how I had always been too concerned with money. Being financially responsible isn't a crime, I countered, feeling like I was talking to a wall. And using my success as an excuse to guilt me into opening my wallet isn't going to work this time. The call ended pretty much as you'd expect, with no resolution and a lot of angry hang-ups. After I put down the phone, I was left shaking, a cocktail of anger and old resentment swirling inside. It was the same old story, just a different day. I tried to calm down by taking a walk, letting the cool air clear my head. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this was just another manipulation tactic, another way for them to pull me back into old dynamics where I was the perpetual giver and they the takers. Now I'm stuck figuring out what to do next. On one hand, I genuinely don't want my niece to suffer or miss out on opportunities because of her parents' or grandparents' issues. She's just a kid and doesn't deserve that. But on the other hand, I'm tired of being seen as an ATM, only valued for what I can give financially. Should I just give the money and keep the peace? Set some strict boundaries about it? Or refuse outright and try to help in other ways that don't involve just handing over cash? Maybe there's a way to support my niece directly, bypassing my parents and sister altogether. It's a tough spot to be in, and I'm really torn about the best way to handle it. If anyone out there has been through something similar or has any pearls of wisdom, I'm all ears. Sometimes just talking it out or hearing someone else's take can make a huge difference. Here's hoping I can find a solution that doesn't leave me feeling like I've compromised my own values or let down someone who needs help. Update 2. So my sister called me, and honestly, I was expecting another round of the guilt trip Olympics, but what I got instead threw me for a loop. I picked up the phone, bracing myself, and it was my sister sounding different, like more chill and genuine than usual. Hey, I heard about the talk you had with mom and dad. I just wanted to say, if you're feeling weird about giving the money, you really don't have to. I don't want to push you into anything. I was kind of stunned. This wasn't the conversation I expected to have. Really? Thanks for saying that. It's a lot to process, you know? Yeah, I get it, she said, and I could almost picture her nodding on the other end. I should have talked to you directly before letting mom and dad handle it. Sorry for the drama they stirred up. We talked more, and she shared how she felt stuck and thought maybe reaching out for financial help was the only way. But now, she was seeing things a bit differently, thanks to our chat. It was probably the most honest and open conversation we'd had in ages. Thanks for being understanding. It means a lot, I told her, feeling a weird mix of relief and disbelief. Of course, and hey, maybe we can figure out something else. Something that doesn't make you uncomfortable, she suggested. We ended the call on a good note, something I hadn't expected but definitely appreciated. I hung up feeling lighter, but also kind of confused about what to do next. Later that night, after the kids were tucked in and the house was quiet, I sat down with my wife to unpack the whole thing. We settled into our comfy couch with some tea, the kind of setup that says it's time for a serious chat. So, my sister called, I started. She said I don't have to give the money if I'm not comfortable with it. That's good, right? My wife said, sipping her tea thoughtfully. It sounds like she's really trying to respect where you're coming from. Yeah, it's good. It's just, Now I'm wondering if there's a way to help that feels right, you know? I was fiddling with my cup, thinking out loud. My wife set her cup down and gave me that look that says she's about to drop some wisdom. If you decide to help, just make sure it's on your terms. You could make sure the money is used for what it's meant for, like putting it directly toward her school expenses or setting it up as a loan instead of just giving it away. That's a really good point, I nodded, feeling grateful for her level-headedness. I don't want to just open up my checkbook without some boundaries. That wouldn't help anyone in the long run. We talked for a while, exploring different ideas on how I could offer support without feeling like I was just giving in to pressure. My wife really helped me see that there were ways to be supportive that didn't involve just handing over cash with no strings attached. Maybe setting up a trust for her education might work, I suggested, warming up to the idea. That way, the money is locked in for its intended purpose, and there's no way it can be misused or redirected somewhere else. That sounds like a solid plan, my wife agreed, smiling. You'd be helping in a way that's constructive and keeps your integrity intact. That conversation with my wife was exactly what I needed. It helped me organize my thoughts and come up with a plan that felt right. Talking things through with someone who understands you really can make all the difference. So now, I'm putting together some ideas on how to set up this educational trust, or something similar, and I plan to talk it over with my sister. I want to make sure that if I do this, it's done right, benefiting her without causing more family drama. If any of you have been in a similar spot or have advice on handling family and money, especially when it comes to trusts and educational funds, I'd love to hear it. Managing these family dynamics is tricky, but I'm hoping we're moving toward a resolution that feels right for everyone. Here's to navigating the choppy waters of family relationships and coming out okay on the other side. Update 3. Okay, so I thought I had finally found a good solution by setting up a trust fund for my sister's education, right? Well, I was pretty proud of myself for figuring out a way to help her without just throwing cash at the situation. I set everything up, talked to a financial advisor, and made sure it was all airtight. My sister was thrilled when I told her about it, and honestly, it felt great to help her out like this. But, as usual with family stuff, the peace didn't last long. I figured I should give my parents a heads up about the trust fund, hoping they'd see the sense in making sure the money was used right. So I picked up the phone, dialed their number, and braced myself for their reaction. The call started off okay. "Hey Mom, Dad, just wanted to let you know I've set up a trust fund for Sis's schooling," I said, trying to keep my tone light and positive. There was a beat of silence, and then my dad's voice came through, sounding confused and a bit annoyed. "A trust fund? What for? Why didn't you just give the money to us?" I explained. "It's a way to make sure the money goes directly to her school expenses. This way everything is transparent, and we know it's being used for her education." You could almost hear the temperature rise on the other side of the phone. My mom chimed in, her voice tight with frustration. "We're her parents. We should be handling that money. You should have given it to us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Were they serious? Handling the money? No, this way is better because it ensures the money is used only for her education, nothing else. My dad got really heated then. "You're overstepping your bounds, thinking you can control everything with your money. We know what's best for her." The argument spiraled from there. Overstepping? I'm trying to do something good here. This isn't about control, it's about responsibility, I shot back, my voice rising despite trying to keep calm. My mom accused me of not trusting them and thinking I'm better than them now that I have money. "You think because you have a little money now you can dictate how we do things? That's not your place," she said bitterly. "Trust is earned," I responded firmly, "and this isn't about me showing off. It's about making sure her education is funded properly without any risk of the money going elsewhere." The conversation ended with them pretty much fuming, and me feeling like a mix between a hero and a villain. I hung up, more frustrated than ever, but also sure I'd done the right thing. Later that evening, I went over everything with my wife. We sat in the quiet of our living room, just digesting the day. I told her about the call, about how they reacted, and how it left me feeling. "You did the right thing," she reassured me, her voice calm and steady. "Setting up that trust was the smart move. It protects your sister and ensures the money is used the way you intended. Your parents, they're reacting out of pride and maybe a bit of envy." We talked a lot about what this meant for us going forward, how to deal with the potential fallout, how to keep communication open with my sister, and how to handle any further conflicts with my parents. "Stick to your decision," my wife advised, squeezing my hand. "You've set this up with the best intentions. Don't let their reaction make you doubt yourself." So here I am, stuck in the middle of family drama yet again, but this time with the confidence that I'm doing something beneficial. My parents might be upset, but hopefully they'll see the benefits in the long run. And if not, I'll just have to stand firm and know I did the right thing for my sister. Navigating family and money is super tricky, almost like trying to defuse a bomb without setting it off. If anyone out there has gone through similar stuff or has any advice on dealing with family money issues, I'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts. Sharing these experiences can sometimes help us see things from another angle and feel a bit less alone in the chaos. Update 4. So after setting up the trust fund for my sister's education and having a really positive chat with her, I thought maybe we were on a path to some peace. But as it turns out, the family drama was just gearing up for another round. I called my sister directly to make sure she was all set and understood how the trust fund worked. She was super thankful and really excited about it, which felt awesome. We had a great conversation, just laughing and planning her future. It was nice, like really nice, to connect with her like this without any drama. But then, a couple of days later, my phone rang, and I saw it was my parents. My stomach did that weird flip it does when I know I'm about to dive into something not so fun. I took a deep breath and answered, "Hey, what's up?" Right off the bat, my dad was all business and a bit on the attack. "We heard you set up that trust fund for your sister and talked to her about it," he started. "Yeah, I wanted to make sure she knew how it worked and that she was okay with everything," I said, trying to keep things calm. "Well," my mom cut in, her tone full of that we're not happy vibe. "We've been thinking, if you can afford to do that, you should really do more. Like buying her a house." I paused, totally thrown off. Buy her a house? That's a huge step. I mean, the trust is one thing, but buying a house is on a whole different level. My dad didn't miss a beat. "If you care about your sister, you'll make sure she's completely secure. A house would do that." The conversation got pretty heated. "Look, I care about her a lot, which is why I set up the trust. But buying a house? That's not just a simple gift or support. That's a major investment, and honestly, it's not something I'm prepared to just jump into," I tried to explain. My mom jumped back in. "You're making all this money and you can't help your own sister more generously? We're your family. You should want to do this." I felt my frustration boiling up. "It's not about not wanting to help. It's about what's reasonable and sensible. I'm not just going to buy houses on a whim. The trust fund was a big commitment already." "We're just asking you to do what's right as her brother," my dad argued, his voice getting louder. "Doing what's right and doing whatever you ask are two different things," I shot back. "I've done something huge for her education. I'm not adding a house to that right now. It's not feasible." The call ended pretty badly, with them saying I was being selfish and me feeling like I was talking to a brick wall. They were disappointed, and I was mad and stressed out. Later, I talked the whole thing over with my wife. We sat in our kitchen, late at night, just trying to unwind, but also figure this out. They just don't see boundaries. They think because I have some money, I can solve all problems with it, I told her, running my hands through my hair. "You've done enough, more than enough," my wife said, her voice firm. "Buying a house isn't just a simple thing, it's a huge responsibility and not something you just do because someone demands it." We talked about how to handle my parents moving forward, how to communicate that I was happy to help my sister, but within limits that made sense. Maybe just reinforce the purpose of the trust, and that you're supporting her in a massive way with that, my wife suggested. "Yeah," I agreed, feeling a bit better. "I need to be clear that I'm not an ATM, and I can't be guilted into making huge financial decisions like this." So, that's the situation now. I'm gearing up for more discussions, or more likely, arguments with my parents. I'm learning a lot about setting boundaries and sticking to them, even when it's super tough. If anyone has any advice on dealing with family who think your wallet is their safety net, I'd really appreciate hearing it. Sometimes just knowing others have navigated these waters can be super helpful. Update 5. So, my sister officially started college, and she's over the moon. It's awesome to see her so pumped about her classes and making new friends. Every time we chat, she's got a ton of stories about her professors, her coursework, and all the new experiences. Setting up that trust fund was definitely a good move. It's like I can almost hear her smiling through the phone when she talks about her day. It makes me feel like I did something really right, you know? But while that part of my life is going great, the family drama part, not so much. My parents are still super ticked off about the whole trust fund thing and the fact that I didn't buy my sister a house like they wanted. And instead of cooling off, they decided to turn up the heat. They've been bad-mouthing me to pretty much anyone in the family who will listen. According to them, I'm the miserly son hoarding his cash while his family struggles, which couldn't be further from the truth. When I first heard about their little smear campaign, I was ticked off. I mean, it's one thing to be mad at me, but spreading lies? That's a whole new level of low. It's like, come on, why drag everyone else into our mess? So I decided I had to clear things up. I started reaching out to some of the family members who'd heard these stories. I wanted to set the record straight and explain my side of things. One of the first calls I made was to my Aunt Linda, who's basically the family's unofficial news broadcaster. She had the scoop, all right, but it was all sorts of twisted. Hey, Aunt Linda, I heard through the grapevine that there's some concern over how I'm handling things with Sis. I wanted to talk to you directly and explain what's really going on, I started, trying to keep my voice calm even though I was super annoyed. Oh, hello, dear. Yes, your mother mentioned that you've been, well, a bit tight-fisted, she said, which is a nice way of saying she thought I was being stingy. I took a deep breath, ready to dive into the whole saga. Actually, Aunt Linda, I set up a trust fund for my sister's education. It covers all her tuition, books, and any school-related expenses. It's completely taken care of so she can focus on studying without worrying about money. There was a pause on the other end, and I could tell she was processing this new info. A trust fund? Well, I didn't know about that. Your mom just said you refused to help with a house. Yeah, the house thing came up, but I felt ensuring her education was fully funded was more important. Buying a house is huge, and with the trust already set up, it seemed excessive and not the best move right now, I explained further, hoping she'd see the sense in it. Aunt Linda seemed to soften a bit. That does sound generous and sensible. Education is a big deal, and it sounds like you've done a lot. We talked a bit more, and by the end of the call, she seemed to understand my perspective a lot better. She even promised to let others know the real story, which was a relief. Despite clearing up some of the confusion, this whole thing made me realize visiting my parents anytime soon was off the table. They've shown they're not above bending the truth to try and guilt me into doing what they want, and I don't need that kind of drama. Later, I sat down with my wife to talk about all this. We were in our living room, just winding down for the day, and I told her everything. You need to protect your peace, she said, always knowing just what to say. If that means keeping some distance for now, then that's what you need to do. So that's the plan. I'm keeping my distance, sticking to my guns, and focusing on the positive changes, like my sister loving college. It's tough navigating family drama, especially when it feels like you're doing it alone. But I'm learning that sometimes you just have to stand firm and do what you believe is right, even if not everyone gets it. If anyone out there has dealt with similar family money issues or has any tips on how to handle family members who turn every conversation into a guilt trip, I'd really appreciate hearing from you. It's comforting to know others have walked this path and come out the other side. Parents abandoned me to have their separate happy families, now they want me back, but I hate them. At 15, life was supposed to be about exploring friendships, discovering passions, and making mistakes with a safety net of parental guidance. Instead, my world had become a juggling act of two households, each steeped in its own new family drama, neither with room for me. It wasn't just that my parents had remarried, it was that in their new lives, they had inadvertently, or perhaps conveniently, reshuffled their priorities to exclude me. My father had married Clara, the woman he had an affair with during his marriage to my mother. She had brought her son, Jacob, into the marriage, and soon after they had Mia, my half-sister. Dad's new family seemed to consume all of his energy and attention. I had hoped to be a big sister that Mia could look up to, and maybe even a friend to Jacob. But at every turn, I was reminded subtly, yet unmistakably, that I was an outsider. The pictures on the mantels, the family calendars marked with their activities. None included me unless it was a reminder for my weekend visits, which they seemed to dread. During these visits, I often felt more like a guest than a daughter. Conversations at the dinner table flowed around me, about schools I didn't attend and people I didn't know. When I tried to contribute, sharing stories of my own experiences, I was often met with distracted nods or polite smiles before the focus shifted back to Clara's children and their lives. It was as though I was a mild inconvenience, disrupting the well-oiled routine of their household. My mother's house wasn't much better. She had remarried Mark, a man who had always been kind to me but distant, as if he were unsure of his role in my life. Together, they had Emily, and it became painfully clear that she was the center of their world. My visits there were marked by a palpable sense of displacement. Toys and baby gear filled the living room. Spaces that used to be mine for homework or watching TV now catered to toddler needs. I tried to engage, to be the helpful older sister, but most times, I just ended up feeling more in the way than useful. What about going to the park this weekend? I once suggested, hoping for some family bonding time. We actually planned a picnic with Emily's playgroup this Saturday, my mother replied, her voice tinged with apology that didn't quite reach her eyes. But we'll try to do something together soon, okay? Soon never seemed to come, and promises like these often evaporated into thin air, lost amid diaper changes and playdates that didn't include me. My room at her house, once a sanctuary filled with my posters and books, had slowly turned into a storage space for Emily's things as she outgrew them. Feeling increasingly alienated, I spent more and more time alone, retreating into books and writing journals. I wrote stories where I was the hero, the cherished daughter, or the adventurer on epic quests, anything that took me away from the reality of my situation. These writings became my escape, a way to live 1,000 lives in worlds where I mattered. As summer approached, I looked forward to spending time at my grandparents' house. Grandma always had a way of making me feel loved and seen. She'd listen to my stories, teach me recipes, and talk to me about her own life with a genuineness that was sorely missing in my interactions with my parents. But even that refuge was tainted when my father announced they were planning a 2-week vacation to Europe. Just him, Clara, Jacob, and Mia. The trip fell during my scheduled time with them. When I asked if I was going too, my father hesitated, his eyes darting away before meeting mine. "We thought you'd enjoy some time at your grandparents'. We'll call every day, and we'll plan something special when we get back," he promised, though the hollow in his words echoed in my chest. They did go to Europe, and the daily calls were brief check-ins, often filled with the noise of their excitement and adventures. I tried to be happy for Mia, who chirped endlessly about castles and gelato, but each call felt like a blade twisting deeper into the wound of exclusion. My mother, on the other hand, was overwhelmed with her work, and Emily. Calls to her were equally sporadic and rushed. "Mom, can we talk? I'm feeling really left out," I tried once, hoping to bridge the gap. "Oh, honey, it's just a busy time right now. Emily's teething, and you know how that goes. We'll talk soon, I promise. Love you." The promises became as empty as the looks of sympathy from friends who noticed my growing withdrawal and sadness. "It's like they don't really see me anymore," I confided in my best friend Sarah one evening at her house, where her parents laughed and cooked together in the kitchen, a stark contrast to my own life. Sarah hugged me tightly, her words a soft whisper. "You deserve better, you know. You're worth more than being an afterthought." It was during one particularly lonely night at my grandparents' house that summer when the full weight of my situation settled on my shoulders. I realized that if I continued to wait for my parents to notice me, to value me as more than an obligation, I might wait forever. Fueled by a mix of hurt and determination, I made a decision that would change the course of my life. I wasn't going to be a secondary character in anyone's story, not even my own. I packed a bag, wrote a note to my grandparents, and took the first bus to Aunt Lucy's house, seeking the acceptance and love I was starved of. A place where I could be primary, seen, and valued. What awaited me there was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would no longer be overshadowed or overlooked, but instead, where I could start to heal and grow into the person I was meant to be. The bus ride to Aunt Lucy's was the longest 2 hours of my life, every mile stretching out as I wrestled with a mix of fear, relief, and uncertainty. I stared out the window, watching the landscape blur, my thoughts racing as fast as the scenery passed. The decision to leave hadn't been easy, but the stifling feeling of being an afterthought in my parents' lives had grown unbearable. I needed a change, a place where I could be seen as more than just a complication in someone else's family portrait. Aunt Lucy lived in a small town that always felt a world away from the city's chaos where my parents resided. Her home was a cozy 2-story house surrounded by a well-tended garden that bloomed with colors most of the year. The familiarity of it brought a comforting rush of nostalgia. This was a place of many summer visits, where I had always felt welcome and loved. As I stepped off the bus, the cool air of early evening brushed against my face, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from Aunt Lucy's garden. I dragged my suitcase behind me, its wheels thumping rhythmically against the pavement, a staccato beat to the turmoil inside me. Aunt Lucy was waiting at the door as I approached, her expression a mixture of concern and surprise. She didn't say anything at first, just opened her arms wide. The hug she gave me was tight and warm, a silent reassurance that I had made the right decision. "Aunt Lucy." "What's going on, honey?" Her voice was gentle, inviting me to open up about everything. Me. "I can't do it anymore, Aunt Lucy. I just feel invisible there, like I'm just a guest in their lives, not a daughter." We sat down in her kitchen, a pot of tea between us, as I poured out everything. The neglect, the loneliness, the feeling of being perpetually out of place. Aunt Lucy listened, her brows knitting together in concern with every word I said. "Aunt Lucy, you're not a guest, my dear. You're family, and you always have a home here with me." The decision to stay with Aunt Lucy wasn't made in haste. It was the result of years of accumulated neglect and the cold realization that my parents, absorbed in their new lives, might never see me as more than an obligation. As we talked, Aunt Lucy didn't just offer me a room. She offered me a chance to reset my life on my own terms. Me. Can I stay here? At least for a while? Aunt Lucy. Of course, you can stay as long as you need. We'll figure out the details later. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Aunt Lucy helped me enroll in the local high school, and we visited the town hall to formalize my living situation with her. Despite the chaos, there was a growing sense of stability and support that I hadn't felt in years. But the true test came when it was time to confront my parents about my decision. Aunt Lucy stood by me as I called them, her presence a calming force. Dad, what's this about you staying with Lucy? Is this some kind of teenage rebellion? His voice was a mix of confusion and irritation. It stung, but I was prepared. Me. It's not rebellion, Dad. It's survival. I don't feel like part of your family anymore. I need to change. The conversation was difficult, filled with pauses and strained justifications. My mother cried, and my father argued, but I held firm, bolstered by Aunt Lucy's quiet strength beside me. Mom, but we're your parents. We love you. You can't just decide to live somewhere else. Me. I can, and I have. I need to be somewhere I feel wanted and valued. The call ended with a heavy silence, a clear divide between my old life and the new path I was forging. In the days that followed, the reality of my decision settled in. I was officially living with Aunt Lucy, attending a new school, and slowly rebuilding my sense of self-worth. School was a fresh start. I made friends who knew nothing of my family drama, who accepted me for who I was, not who my parents were. My grades improved as I found myself able to concentrate without the constant emotional turmoil that had clouded my mind before. Aunt Lucy encouraged my writing, pushing me to submit stories to local competitions and magazines. With each published piece, my confidence grew. Writing became more than a hobby. It was a lifeline, a way to process my emotions and reclaim my voice. Months turned into a year, and with every passing day, I felt stronger, more grounded. Aunt Lucy and I grew closer, our bond strengthening through shared meals, long walks, and endless conversations about life, love, and everything in between. Aunt Lucy, you're doing so well, darling. I'm so proud of the person you're becoming. Her words meant the world to me, filling the void left by my parents' sporadic attempts to reach out. Their calls became less frequent, and when they did call, the conversations were short, the distance between us palpable even through the phone. Living with Aunt Lucy wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a complete transformation of my daily life and mental landscape. The first few months were a mix of adjustment and discovery, as I navigated the new dynamics of my life in a small town where everyone seemed to know each other. Aunt Lucy's house, with its welcoming warmth and walls lined with photographs of happy memories, became my sanctuary. Aunt Lucy had always been the family matriarch, the one everyone relied on during tough times. Her ability to listen without judgment and her unwavering support gave me the courage to open up about my feelings and the challenges I faced. She encouraged me to explore my interests, particularly my writing, which had always been a private escape for me. Aunt Lucy, you have a gift, you know. Your words, they have power. Why not share them with the world? Her encouragement led me to join the school's literary club, where I met other students who shared my passion for stories and storytelling. Under her guidance, I started to compile a portfolio of my work, submitting pieces to student journals and local publications. The first time I saw my name in print, a thrill of excitement surged through me. It was validation, a sign that what I had to say mattered. School became a place where I could excel without the shadows of my family drama looming over me. I made friends, real friends who liked me for who I was, not for the drama that followed me like a shadow. My grades improved significantly as I found myself able to focus on my studies, no longer preoccupied with navigating the unpredictable waters of my parents' attention. Literary Club Advisor. Your voice is unique and your perspective is insightful. You could really make a name for yourself in the writing community. Their words were encouraging, but it was Aunt Lucy's continued support that really pushed me to aim higher. She set up a small workspace for me in the corner of the living room, complete with a desk, a comfortable chair, and shelves filled with books from classic literature to contemporary fiction. It was my little haven within our home, a place where I could write, think, and dream. As months turned into years, my portfolio of writings grew. I experimented with different genres and styles, from poignant short stories to compelling essays on human nature and personal identity. My writing started to gain attention beyond the local community, with invitations to participate in regional workshops and conferences. Aunt Lucy. See what you can achieve when you believe in yourself? I'm just so proud of you. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The emotional scars from my past with my parents sometimes resurfaced, especially during holidays or family gatherings when their absence was more pronounced. I struggled with feelings of abandonment and self-doubt, wondering if I had been too harsh in cutting them off. During one particularly low moment, Aunt Lucy found me staring at a blank page, the cursor blinking mockingly on the screen. Aunt Lucy. What's wrong, dear? Me. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Leaving them, starting over. Was it too much? Aunt Lucy. You did what you needed to do for your own health and happiness. That's not selfish, it's necessary. And look at how much you've grown. Her words were a balm to my troubled mind. She taught me that it was okay to put my own well-being first, that my feelings were valid and needed to be respected, even if that meant distancing myself from those who couldn't provide the support I needed. I leaned into my writing even more, using it as a tool to work through my emotions and to connect with others who might be going through similar experiences. My blog, which started as a small personal project, began to attract a wider audience. People from around the world reached out to share their stories with me, telling me how my words had touched their lives or given them the courage to make changes for their own well-being. Blog comment. Thank you for sharing your story. It's like you took the words right out of my heart. You've inspired me to seek happiness too. This connection with my readers fueled my passion and reaffirmed my decision to pursue a career in writing. It wasn't just about crafting stories, it was about making an impact, about weaving my personal truths into narratives that could resonate with others. As I approached the end of my high school career, the prospect of college loomed on the horizon. I applied to several programs, each step forward a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. When the acceptance letters started to arrive, each one felt like a confirmation of my new path, of the life I had chosen to build away from the shadow of my parents' neglect. The night before my high school graduation, Aunt Lucy and I sat on the porch, looking out at the stars. It was a clear night, the sky a tapestry of twinkling lights. Aunt Lucy. You're going to do great things, my dear. No matter where you go or what you do, remember that you are loved, you are seen, and you are capable of incredible things. Me. Thank you, Aunt Lucy, for everything. I don't think I could have done any of this without you. Her smile was soft, proud. Aunt Lucy, you did the hard work, my dear. I just provided the space for you to flourish. As I prepared to step into the next chapter of my life, I carried with me the lessons I had learned from Aunt Lucy. To value myself, to seek out environments where I could thrive, and to never underestimate the power of a well-told story. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to see where my words would take me next. As the high school chapter of my life closed, the college years beckoned with promises of new beginnings and further independence. Choosing to attend a university with a strong creative writing program wasn't just about pursuing my passion. It was a strategic decision to mold my future, to cement my identity not just as a writer, but as an individual beyond my tumultuous family background. The transition to college was exhilarating, yet daunting. For the first time, I was truly on my own, navigating a larger world filled with diverse voices and stories. My dorm room became my new sanctuary, walls quickly plastered with inspirational quotes and snippets of my favorite poetry. It was here, amid the quiet hum of late-night oil burning, that my first novel began to take shape. Roommate, you're always typing away. What's the story about? Me. It's about a girl finding her place in the world despite her family. Kind of like a journey of self-discovery and resilience. Roommate. Sounds intense. Can't wait to read it someday. Her casual interest sparked a further drive in me. I spent countless nights refining my characters, weaving in elements of my own experiences with fictional twists that allowed me to explore deeper themes of betrayal, acceptance, and healing. Classes were a revelation. Professors challenged my thinking and stretched my abilities. I thrived under their guidance, soaking up every critique and discussion, using them to fuel my writing. One professor in particular took a keen interest in my development. Professor Harding. Your voice is unique, and your narrative technique is sophisticated for someone your age. Have you considered publishing? His words were both a validation and a challenge. Publishing had always been a dream, a far-off goal, but Professor Harding's encouragement brought it within reach. Me, I think about it a lot, but it feels so daunting. How do I even begin? Professor Harding, start by sharing your work. Enter competitions, submit to journals, get feedback. It's all about taking those first steps. I followed his advice, sending out pieces to various magazines and entering every writing contest that seemed a good fit. Rejections were plenty, each a sting. But then the acceptances began to roll in, each one a small victory, a step closer to my dream. By my sophomore year, a short story of mine won a national writing competition. The story, a reflective piece on lost childhood and the quest for identity, resonated with many, earning me a small but appreciative following. Literary magazine editor. Your story has touched many of our readers. We'd love to feature more of your work. This recognition was more than an accolade. It was affirmation that my experiences, my voice, had value in the wider world. It propelled me to finish my novel, a process that was both cathartic and transformative. Balancing academics and writing was a challenge, but the discipline it required shaped not only my time management skills, but also my priorities and ambitions. The novel became my thesis project, a culmination of my college experience and personal journey. Graduation approached with the promise of new beginnings. My novel, now complete, was a manuscript brimming with the essence of my struggles and triumphs. The process of querying agents and publishers began, a daunting phase filled with hope and uncertainty. Then, just a week after graduation, a call changed everything. Agent, we love your manuscript. It's raw, powerful, and beautifully written. We believe it has significant potential. Let's talk about your future. The offer to publish my first novel came as a surreal moment of triumph. My work, once a private solace, was about to be shared with the world. The excitement was overwhelming, but so was the anxiety of how my story, so deeply personal, would be received. The months that followed were a whirlwind of edits, cover designs, and marketing plans. I was involved in every step, determined to ensure that the final product was true to my vision. Launch day was a mixture of nerves and excitement. Holding the first printed copy of my novel was a moment of profound achievement. The cover, featuring a lone figure standing at a crossroads, perfectly encapsulated the essence of the journey within. Aunt Lucy, I always knew you could do it. This is just the beginning, my dear. Her pride in my achievement was a balm to the lingering doubts about my family's absence in this significant moment. They hadn't been part of this journey, their interest in my life having waned to sporadic, almost obligatory calls that barely scratched the surface of genuine connection. The novel hit the shelves and was met with enthusiasm. Reviews praised the authenticity of the narrative and the compelling voice of a new author who had not only written a story, but lived it. Book review. A stunning debut that delves deep into the complexities of family and personal growth, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As interviews and book signings filled my schedule, I felt a sense of fulfillment that went beyond professional success. My story was out in the world, touching lives, encouraging others to face their past and forge their own paths. This chapter of my life, my rise as a writer, was not just about overcoming the neglect and invisibility I had felt as a child. It was about reclaiming my narrative, proving that out of neglect could come strength, and from invisibility, a spotlight that shone on my own terms. My journey was a testament to the power of perseverance, the importance of supportive relationships, and the transformative impact of owning one's story. As my career began to blossom, I looked forward to the next chapters, ready to explore new stories, new challenges, and new opportunities to make an impact. As my first book found its audience and carved out a space in the literary world, my life underwent a transformation. The once uncertain writer, who grappled with feelings of neglect and invisibility, was now standing confidently on her own 2 feet, recognized and respected. This new chapter wasn't just about embracing independence, it was about confronting the past and negotiating the complexities of potential reconciliation with my family. The success of my book brought unexpected challenges, one of which was the re-emergence of my parents in my life. Their sudden interest coincided suspiciously with my growing public profile. My father reached out first, his voice a mixture of pride and awkwardness over the phone. Dad, I read your book. It's really something. You've done well for yourself, and I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud. Me. Thank you, Dad. It means a lot to hear that. The words were polite, but I felt a surge of mixed emotions. His praise was something I had longed for in my youth, yet now it rang hollow, complicated by years of distance and detachment. As I navigated the waters of newfound fame, my mother also made attempts to reconnect. She sent emails filled with apologies and explanations, trying to bridge the gap of years with words that seeped with regret. Mom, I know I wasn't there for you as I should have been. I can't change the past, but I hope we can build something new. Maybe start over? Reading her words, I felt the old ache of abandonment stir within me. The desire for a family that cared was entangled with the pain of their previous neglect. I turned to Aunt Lucy for advice, her wisdom always a guiding light. Aunt Lucy, you have the power to choose who you let into your life now. Whatever decision you make, ensure it's for your happiness, not out of obligation or guilt. Her advice resonated deeply. I was no longer the powerless child yearning for attention and love. I was an accomplished adult who could set boundaries and demand respect. I agreed to meet my parents, each separately, to explore the possibilities of reconciliation. The meetings were emotionally charged, each a delicate dance of old hurts and tentative hopes. Meeting my father at a quiet cafe, we talked awkwardly at first, tiptoeing around the deeper issues. Eventually, our conversation ventured into more personal territory. Dad, I missed a lot, didn't I? I'm sorry for that. The book, it opened my eyes to a lot of things I didn't want to see before. Me. It wasn't just the book, Dad. It was years of feeling left out. I'm glad you're seeing it now, but it's hard. It's really hard. The conversation was a start, a small step towards understanding, if not yet forgiveness. With my mother, the encounter was similarly fraught with a history of emotional neglect that couldn't be undone in a single meeting. Mom, I should have fought harder for you, for our relationship. I let too many things get in the way. Can we try to make it right? Me, maybe, Mom, but it's going to take time. I can't just forget the past. In the midst of these tentative reconnections, I continued to write. My experiences with my parents fueled my second book, a deeper exploration into the themes of forgiveness and resilience. Writing became my therapy, my way of processing complex feelings and evolving from them. As my professional life flourished, I found solace and joy in new relationships and continued support from friends and readers who connected with my journey. Book signings and literary festivals not only bolstered my career, but also reinforced my sense of community and belonging in the literary world. One particular event stood out, a panel discussion on family dynamics in literature, where I shared the stage with other authors who had explored similar themes. Panel moderator, your books touch heavily on family and forgiveness. What drives you to write about these themes? Me. It's personal. My writing is a reflection of my life's complexities, the struggles with family, the journey towards self-discovery, and the ongoing process of defining what forgiveness means to me. The audience's response was overwhelmingly positive, with many expressing how my stories had given them the courage to face their own familial challenges. Independence wasn't just about living apart from my parents or succeeding on my own. It was about owning my story, controlling how I let it define me, and choosing how and with whom I shared my life. The year rolled on, and with it, my relationships with my parents slowly, tentatively, began to mend. There were setbacks, moments when old wounds reopened and the distance seemed too great to bridge. But there were also moments of genuine connection, phone calls that didn't feel obligatory, visits that didn't end in tears. Dad, I'm learning, about you, about myself. It's not easy, but I want to try. Me, that means a lot, Dad. Let's keep trying. Reconciliation was not a swift process, nor was it linear. It required patience, understanding, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and each other. As I penned the final chapters of my second book, I reflected on the growth and changes the past years had brought. My narrative had expanded beyond my own story to touch the lives of others, and in doing so, it had changed me. Independence and reconciliation. These themes intertwined in my life as I continued to write, to heal, and to hope. Each word I wrote was a testament to my journey, a declaration that, despite the past, the future was mine to write. In the burgeoning light of my career and evolving personal life, I looked forward to the unfolding chapters, knowing that whatever they held, I was now the author of my own story, free to craft its path with wisdom, courage, and an open heart. Edit. Because people think I just made it up, and I am a moody teen. You know when you are at a friend's house where their parents don't particularly like you, and you feel tense all the time, and you feel like you shouldn't be there. That was the feeling I constantly had at their houses. I know that my stepfather doesn't like me that much. My parents would both fight about who keeps me longer, but not in the sense I want to have her longer. But I took her last weekend. It's your turn. Also planning fun activities for the day after I leave, my father and his wife would often schedule visits to the parks or bigger trips, specifically to the weeks my mother had me and my mother and her husband would leave me alone at home so they could go out with the baby. Every chance they got, they would ship me off to grandma's or my aunt's place with some excuse and then do family stuff. Also, when you went through the houses, there were barely any pictures of me. They had big portraits of my siblings and them together, but almost none of mine. They shipped me off to my grandma's and grandpa's for a whole summer and only called twice. When there are family functions, I am often excluded, like my dad had a family barbecue and didn't invite me. They forgot my birthday on more than one occasion, and when they remembered, they got me a $10 Starbucks gift card, even when they know I don't like Starbucks. So no, they never straight up said it, but they didn't hide it either.